After party on Club Fantasy FFL. Tonight, we are getting into which veteran players can bring stability, which emerging stars offer upside to push you over the top, and what trade strategies will keep your roster balance from now and moving on. Whether you're looking for one last push for this year, depth for insurance, favorable matchups, we have what you need to make your championship dreams a reality. What is going on, all you Dynasty D-Gens? Tonight, it is me, myself, I, and Joel, and we are welcoming in from South Harmon, one of our good buddies, Iowa Michael. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Did you just happen to moonlight as like a late night DJ in a previous life? Is that what you were on?
I've heard that many times. Like, that voice is so good for radio. I'm like, this face is good for radio as well.
Mine too.
How you doing tonight, Joel?
Miserable. If you checked out the trade show on Tuesday, I've been fighting cold for since Sunday, but yeah, I don't know. I'm all right. I'm here. It's all good.
Well, I won't.
My voice sounds like crap, and I'll be coughing all night. But other than that, I'm good.
There you go. Don't cough into the microphone. We'll get you a little what do they call it? A screen for your microphone, and you'll be good. You won't get sick tomorrow.
I got the mute all queued up, so I got the cough button going on, just like radio DJ.
There you go. Just like a radio DJ, it's always on mute. At least. Well, here we don't have a 3-second delay, so you just got to be right on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, tonight we're going to get into what it's going to take for you to win your championship this year and going forward without trying to decimate your team too much. So let's dive right in to veterans to target. And I want to try to do this kind of more or less, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end kind of a thing. So I'll bounce back and forth between the two of you. I'll start with you, Mike. Quarterback to target, veteran quarterback to target for contending teams that may be overvalued or undervalued.
Definitely. I got one for you. It's Kirko Chains. Kirko Chains out there. Keep Trade Cut still hates him. Like he's in the mid-20s, right? Like we still treat him like he's week 1, week 2 Kirk Cousins, where he looked terrible. He's been playing really well. And I don't think the cost of acquisition on Kirk Cousins is actually that high. And what he's actually delivering, I'm a big proponent of our warp tool over there at South Harmon. Top 15 in warp is Kirk Cousins on the season. So his production is definitely not matching up with what his current dynasty value is. At least by the, what do you want to call them? The masses, or whoever the hell votes on Keep Trade Cut. It's not me. I always skip that shit. I don't fucking care. Get away from it. But yeah, just in general consensus is Kirk Cousins down there a little bit too far, and his actual production has been really, really good. And I think it's actually upticked as we keep going on in the season, and he looks a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much redraft, but as far as this year, the uptick, I mean, it's been pretty Tampa Bay heavy for his uptick. 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for him this year. Does that do those 2 games step in and go, okay, that's maybe why it's everybody else is like, okay, that's not the guy we think it is. Although I am with you. I think with the weapons that he has, this offense, the offensive coordinator that he has, he's going to be able to sling it. And it's not going to be just this year. He's going to be valuable next year as well, in my opinion.
The real problem you have with quarterbacks in general when you say that, hey, who do you want to target that are veterans? There's a tier of elite guys that cost everything. Mm-hmm. And then there's a next tier of like 15 to 20 that are pretty much the same thing. No matter really how you look at it, you're really splitting hairs with them. So ideally, if he's going to fall in that same range, I'm just looking for the cheapest one, right? Like I don't want to overpay for somebody who's going to give me, in all reality, like a CJ Stroud numbers, glorified game manager at this point, or Justin Herbert in a run-first offense. Like I'm looking for the cheapest, most disgusting one that's out there. Kirk Cousins is probably the one out of that group that you feel the most safe about because the weapons are good and the play has actually been good. Tampa Bay is fun. It boosted his numbers, obviously, but he's done well against some other teams that he's played well and hasn't been the reason, for losses. Hasn't been on Kirk. So, yeah, I thought about putting like Geno Smith in that category, but Geno's also had some absolutely just terrible, brutal games, which I don't know how long he's going to make it throughout the season. With them being in an actual playoff race for the division, he keeps playing terrible at times. That could be a dude that you bought into that pretty soon's on the bench. A lot of these quarterbacks. I don't think Kirk Cousins is really in that danger, so that's why I went with him.
Yeah, I love the pick there because I think between him and even the guy that Joel is about to talk about, to me, they're right next to each other. I think these are the perfect guys that we're looking at to be able to bump our roster into that championship tier. Because if you're sitting there with somebody like a Daniel Jones, a Derek Carr, maybe a Will Levis started off with Deshaun Watson, or even Aaron Rodgers, these two guys with Kirk Cousins and the guy that Joel's fixing to bring up, I think these two guys are right there in that same kind of a value tier that you can go grab, and they actually add more value, more points on the board right now. So Joel, I'll let you talk about your guy.
Yeah, I think that's a great call on Cousins because that's what he's been the entirety of his dynasty career, right? Is a guy that nobody wants because he's not sexy, but he just puts up top 5, top 10, top 12 numbers every single year. So, yeah, and, getting to his age with Penix behind him, I don't think, if he's on a non-contender, that person's probably trying to move off of him ASAP. So, yeah, go and get him. I went with Matthew Stafford, who's basically in the same situation. Somebody I think most people think is going to get replaced next year or is going to have an injury or is just going to decide to walk away. But he's got Puka coming back. He's got Cooper Kupp coming back. It looks like a much more dynamic offense than it has been to this point. All DeMarcus Robinson does is catch touchdowns. So, even with Kyron Williams getting his touchdown a game, it's still an offense that can produce a lot of fantasy points from the quarterback. So, and does he have a lot of dynasty value? No, because he could be just maybe just an 8-game sample, and he may decide to go home and not play anymore. But he's going to be productive throughout the rest of the season, assuming he stays healthy.
Yeah, Joel, do me a favor. Your camera and your mic is breaking up real bad. I'm gonna kick you, and then if you can, just either restart, jump back in, whatever. If you don't mind, that way we can get you straightened out there. So while he's doing that, let's go over to Mike and talk about the running back position here, because I do love this pick, and maybe not even so much just the rest of this year. There's a possibility this guy could be valued even going to next year.
Yeah. DeAndre Swift's a pick for me. DeAndre Swift's been a guy that I've loved forever, and it's, we had like one really good year and a second year where I was like, yeah, there we go. And then kind of always in that perennial, like injured and then kind of in the doghouse with Dan Campbell. It was rough. It was rough. He goes to the Eagles, favorite team, and I thought he played very well. It just happened to be that he got no touchdowns. No touchdowns because, why score touchdowns when we just push Jalen Hurts into the end zone? You'll be fine. You'll be all right. He's going to get compared to like why DeAndre Swift didn't do more now that you see what Saquon Barkley's doing, but obviously very different in talent. DeAndre Swift started the season pretty bad. The Bears couldn't run the football to save their lives early in the season. And then up until last week, DeAndre Swift had rattled off like 4 20-point games and scored a touchdown in every single one of them. Last week, Bears offense struggled. DeAndre Swift didn't have the greatest game, but it was still decent enough. It wasn't a complete dud. I really like what I see out of him. The Bears felt good enough, too, that, everybody's favorite darling, Khalil Herbert, once upon a time, they're like, just get him off the team, send him away for a 7th. Roshan Johnson, I've always kind of been a fan of him, but he's just kind of a dude. He looks slow. He runs funny. The only frustrating thing is when they give him goal line work, after DeAndre Swift takes him all the way down the field and then they pull him out and, give it to Roshan. But DeAndre Swift's out here producing, and he's doing it at a rate that's pretty incredible when you think about how quickly we wrote this guy off. On the season right now, DeAndre Swift is sitting here, and he's in the mix of being a top 12 locked-in running back as far as WARP goes, right around what J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, and the newly minted fresh contract Chuba Hubbard's out here doing. So dynasty value, again, doesn't really match up to it. Keep trade cut last time I looked at him at RB22. behind Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, and Bucky Irving. All those guys are nice, but there's a clear difference in actual production versus just boosting them up because of dynasty age. So I think DeAndre Swift's a pretty good guy to go target to be like your RB2, maybe a flex option if your team's deep enough, and just help you there go to the playoffs and hopefully the championship.
The one thing I didn't ask you about Kirk Cousins, and I'll ask you about Kirk Cousins and DeAndre Swift here. What would be the trade value? What would you be willing to give up here for either Kurt or Kurt and DeAndre, for both of them?
Ooh. Well, if I can get both of them, my first round pick's going to be in play. But individually, I would say for both of those guys, you're probably looking at like an early second. I don't even know if it would cost that. More than likely for some team that's kind of sitting there with those two assets that wants to get them off their team, I would say mid-second, maybe like a juice piece, some little toss in, somebody with youth that people are like, oh, I can see a scenario where this guy maybe does something later on. Once upon a time that used to always be the Kendre Miller, like the toss in, but after Dennis Allen nuked him and put him on IR, that's kind of a wait and see thing. So something along those lines where you're not actually getting any production out of this guy, but there's still enough people out there that kind of think, okay, just maybe this is something that I want to buy into in the future. You send that mid-second round-ish kind of pick and move on. I also think with all the injuries that we've had, the Chris Godwins and Brandon Ayuks of the world, like all these guys that we're producing out there, those are perfect ones to kind of send away and get the zero off your team and try to get into something that's not super sexy, but right around the range where like, damn, I'm actually going to get a producer on my team and get rid of an injured guy. So if there's somebody out there still buying into, Brandon Ayuk for the long term, I'd love to be able to pivot, especially in a super flex league, to Kirk Cousins, but DeAndre Swift's a real fine consolation prize if you could get that done.
Yeah, I love how you brought up the Ayuk, and not necessarily Ayuk himself, but the going to get a wide receiver for this running back. Don't go running back for running back here. Joel, how you feeling? Are you sound any better right now?
Better. Is that better on your side?
I don't know. We'll let you try to talk about your running back here. And
Okay.
if you're bad, I'm gonna treat you like I treated Hoove the other night on Trade Block. How about that?
Shut me down. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs, who's been he's been a very good NFL player, but hasn't been very good for fantasy this year because he hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns, hasn't broken a lot of long runs. But I think a lot of that is just because they put themselves, like the game script situations they've been in with Malik Willis and everything kind of forced them to be very run heavy, and it kind of took the kind of element of surprise out of it. But he's been very good. He's been getting like 4 to 5 yards a pop. He just hasn't, like I said, he hasn't broken any real long runs, and until recently hadn't really scored any touchdowns. So he's someone whose fantasy numbers don't look great, but he's been very good, and he's going to continue to have a very large role. And he's not really young, so he's not someone that dynasty managers are going to be clinging on to for the long term.
Yeah, my thing with him is I think that dynasty managers are going to look at it and go, okay, what's his contract status? It's basically 4 1-year deals. And then, so I'm not going to pay up, which I think is the perfect asset to go and get for this championship run if you were going to make a championship run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'll ask you the same question I asked Mike a minute ago about his 2 guys he's already spoke about. Your 2 guys were Matthew Stafford, Josh Jacobs. How do you value these guys if you're going to go and try to trade for them right now?
I think they're probably both. Like, if I'm a contender and I'm going for a championship, I expect my draft pick next year to be late first. In the first, I expect to be late round. So if I'm very confident that I can get through the playoffs with the team I have, then yeah, I'm okay sending a first for either one of these guys because if you've got a Dak Prescott, you got a really good team, but you had a Dak Prescott or something that you may be losing for the season and you need to make a replacement. Yeah, I'm good giving up first for Matthew Stafford. If I need a running back, I'm good moving a first for Josh Jacobs.
All right, before we get over to Mike and his wide receiver pick there, I just want to bring Josh up on the screen here. He said he moved Brandon Ayuk in a couple leagues, in one league to get Bijan.
What's moved from him?
That's a nice move from you, Josh. Nicely done. Nicely done. Jay Jackson is in the house as well.
I would hope there was more involved than just Brandon.
I hope that's
for
a package.
Bijan.
Yeah.
Well, rumor has it that he also got some signed jersey or I don't know, something in the mail coming.
Man, it must be nice to get a jersey from Josh on time.
Fizzle in the house if this was in the house. All right, Mike, talk to you about your veteran wide receiver that you are targeting here.
Former Bear. I got a theme, I guess. It's way too many Bears or former Bears. But Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's out here producing at a top 20 warp clip for wide receivers. And this guy was an afterthought for a lot of people. I was higher on Darnell Mooney coming into the season, but he's smashing even my expectations. I kind of thought with Kirk Cousins there, Darnell Mooney was going to be like that Jordan Addison for him. And you kind of saw Jordan Addison have some big weeks last year with Kirk Cousins. Now, it wasn't the most consistent. Darnell Mooney's having those big weeks, but he's also being highly consistent. I mean, this is a guy who's almost at 24% target share, for a guy that was a write-off. Now, 24% target share is like, whoa. He's actually a focus in this offense. So Darnell Mooney's out here just producing, and Keep Trade Cut still hates him. I mean, he's moved up quite a bit since the beginning of the season because this was a dude who was down in the 60s, 70s, borderline waiver wire in shallower leagues. But he's still right around the range of, Khalil Shakir, a guy that I like, but obviously the consistency and the production is not there for Shakir like it is for Darnell Mooney. That's a move that you could easily make. Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Legette, I mean, these are prospects at this point on age. I guess Xavier Legette, if he catches one touchdown every game, it's a payoff. But I doubt that keeps up. But it's always fun to see a celebration with riding dollar bill. But I don't understand how Darnell Mooney's all the way down here when you got a guy who's out here producing. And it's not like he's that old. He's only 27 years old. But he has the dynasty value of somebody who's 31. And he has Tyler Lockett's type dynasty value. The production's pretty damn good. Darnell Mooney's a guy that I think you could easily get for just some random second at this point. I don't think rebuilders are going to value him for the long term. They probably actively want to get him off their team to get the points off their team because he's hurting their rebuild, hurting their tank job. So you can send a second, or if you can send one of these wide receivers that's kind of in that range, that's all just kind of propped up by youth and not given the production, that's something I'll do 10 times out of 10 on my contending teams.
Yeah, I was pretty high on Darnell Mooney. I thought Darnell Mooney was actually going to get more run this year than London did, and come to find out they are almost dead even when it comes to targets and that sort of thing. But he's just getting more. At least early in the season, he was getting more of the valuable touchdown targets. Joel, your wide receivers.
I went with the tandem of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because the offense has been so bad without Tua, and they haven't been great with Tua. The only guy who's really producing that offense is Devon Achane. So I think there's been a massive kind of downshift in the dynasty value of both those guys. And they could just turn it around and be, absolutely just fine once, Tua gets in the groove. But I think there's a long-term concern with them, just like Tyreek's getting old, and then there's a question of stability with that entire team. How long can Tua last? He's one concussion away from kind of ending his career. What's that offense going to look like? Does Mike McDaniel make it through the season? Is there a different coach? Is it a Belichick team next year? There's a lot in flux with that team. So I think those are guys that dynasty managers may be willing to move off of, but are obviously super talented.
I like that. I like those calls there. Where are you at on tight end, Mike?
I hate the position as a whole. I really do. So if you're going to make me pick one, though, I threw a guy in there who I've always been a fan of. I like the guy, and especially with Drake May there, it just seems like the guy is producing. That whole offense just looks so much better with Drake May. It's probably because Drake May is the GOAT. Drake May is him. But Hunter Henry is producing as a top 7 option at tight end in warp, and it's like nobody cares. Nobody still cares. He goes out there, that's a guy you could start weekly, and he's dirt cheap. I looked at the Keep Trade Cut ranks for him, and I was surprised how far I had to keep scrolling to find Hunter Henry. Ben Sinnott has caught one pass all year at this rate. still ranked above him. Jatavian Sanders has had some moments, still ranked above him. Hunter Henry's out here at tight end 21, barely fighting off Dalton Schultz and Theo Johnson. That's where it is. That's how far down Hunter Henry has fallen in past years where people wrote him off, that even this ascension with producing at top 7 tight end numbers, people still don't care. So if you're looking at Hunter Henry and then you ask the question of like, how much does he cost? Maybe a third in a super flex league. Like maybe a third. Maybe you got to throw in just some turd burger, whatever. Throw in a future fourth or something along those lines to your third round pick. But you could pretty easily go out and acquire Hunter Henry and just start him every week and don't really care because it's tight end position. It really doesn't matter in fantasy football anyways.
Yeah, I made the joke that we should get rid of tight ends in the lineup. If you want to use a tight end, you can use them as a flex play. That's fine. But yeah, there's very few of them that. I mean, Kate Otten's the only one I want to hold off, and that's because I'm a Bucks fan. But that's fine. Jay is right there with you. Jay Jackson says a great philosopher once said tight ends don't matter.
Let's go, Jay.
All right, Joel, who is your tight end that you were targeting?
I got Mark Andrews, who has been obviously an elite producer in the past. He's been phased out of the offense a little bit, but he's kind of getting back in. Isaiah Likely's now hurt, so he kind of primed to kind of retake that full tight end target share for the time being. And he's a guy that if he can kind of consolidate that position, can be. There's no reason he can't still be an elite producer, especially in an elite offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Other than Likely seems to be like neck and neck with him, and now you're adding DJ to the mix. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying just play off that uncertainty. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are scared of him. If you're a non-contender and you have him on your line, he's 29, 30 years old. He's probably not someone you're kind of thinking of building around. So he's probably someone that you can that's available, right? How many elite tight ends are even available right now? We're trying to trade for Brock Bowers. It's not happening.
Yeah. What are you willing to give up to go get Mark Andrews right now?
Depends on how much the premium is. Like in a non-tight end premium, probably not much. Just because, there's guys like Hunter Henry that can go get cheaper. It's a great point by Mike that he's probably free. So in a non-tight end premium, I'm okay just throwing that guy out there every week. But in a tight end premium, 175, something like that, I'd certainly do a first for Mark Andrews.
Okay, that is fair. I'll ask this one last question about the whole thing is what is the highest pick or the prospect that you'd want to give up to acquire a workhorse running back for the playoffs, whether that be a Josh Jacobs, whether it be a DeAndre Swift in your Dynasty league right now? I'll start with you, Mike.
I'll easily give up my first and probably a second if Saquon, Derrick Henry, or Alvin Kamara are available.
And that's assuming that your first is, of course, your first, the back end first.
Yeah.
Well, the 112, the 111.
Yeah, if it was just pick value, let's just hypothetically say all of them were available to you. What would I give up for Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry? Is there a number if I'm a good contender that's too high? Because I'm really just trying to win the championship this year. Like the 101 next year feels nice. It really does. But you get another couple weeks into it, and Saquon's still producing at the level he is, and I'm sitting at the 1 seed, and I'm like, man, if I add Saquon to this team, this thing is a wrap. This is a lock, especially with his schedule to end the year. You can have the 101, man. I'll enjoy the championship, and I'll worry about my team for the next 7 years while I'm playing with y'all's money in league dues. Like, I'll be completely fine. Once you start getting down to the real nut cutting time, it's like all bets are off. But right now, as you sit here, I don't know if I had to put a pick number on it, I'd say like the 106 in this class. I think I'd be willing to give up for one of those guys if I had like one of those mid first round picks.
Joel?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, if you look at it from like a 30,000 foot point of view at this next year's draft class, it's not great. I mean, it's fine. It's good. It's probably gonna be like a 22 level draft class. It's not gonna be like last year. Like you're not gonna get, the Neighbors and Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams and Jay Daniels and all these elite prospects that came out of this class. It's not gonna be valued as highly. So Yeah, I'm okay moving my 25 first, even if it's even if I'm a mid team that's kind of sneaking into the playoffs. And I think if I, like Mike said, if I add an elite guy like a Saquon Barkley or a top end guy, maybe I can push myself into the playoffs. Yeah, I'm willing to take that risk because and what do you get next year's class is going to be super running back heavy anyway. So you're just replacing one running back with an older one. So if it's an elite guy like a Barkley or a Jacobs that I know is going to produce, then yeah, I'm okay making that deal.
I want to read y'all something that I caught today from a good buddy Garrett Price. Over a 5-year sample, 2018 to 2022, hit rate on draft picks. You ready for this? Picks 101 through 104, 70% hit rate. 105 to 108, 25% hit rate. Here's where it got interesting. 19 to 112, 50% hit rate. The 19 to 112 is 25% higher hit rate than the 105 to 108. Top half of the second, 23%. Bottom half of the second, 20%. Third round, 7%. Any of that stand out to you?
Yeah, quite a bit of it. Adam and I did a big long show in the off season where we used warp, a baseline of 1 warp or a top 12 finish or top 24 finish at warp. And shout out to Dynasty Barry for putting all the data together through multiple draft classes. But the hit rates were actually pretty surprisingly good, especially when you take like Joel said, you step back and you take this 50,000 foot view at it and you look at multiple years, over 3 years. The problem that it's starting to become, though, and you're seeing this in the NFL, and it's starting to bleed over to some dynasty managers, is patience. Patience is always, you got rookies who don't do much in the first 8 games, and it's like, this dude's a turd. Like, done. Like, I'm through with him. Especially with the quarterback position, then all of a sudden the next year they come back and you're like, oh wow, they actually were good and they learned how to play at an NFL speed and the offense became more in line with what they wanted to do. Or maybe the coaching staff in their rookie year got fired because they're incompetent, like everybody on the Bears, and all of a sudden this new coaching staff really unlocked them. So I would say if you take this big holistic look at it, yes, over a 3-year sample size, most of these guys are going to pan out. And I always hated that phrase. I know you guys have played Dynasty for a long time too, where rookie picks are just a dart throw. Not really. Not really. You give me all 12 rookie picks in a class, I'm going to find 5 or 6 that are going to change my future outlook for Dynasty. I'm going to find 5 or 6 dudes who are like, man, I hit on this one. My rookie value just went through the roof. Like my team value all of a sudden looks really good. So I've always hated that approach where they're all crapshoots. Like they do have a place and a value. Yes, you're gonna have the turds that you draft, but even the turds that you end up drafting, most of them, like it takes a little bit before the community completely just writes them off. I mean, even Quentin Johnston, who was terrible last year, is seeing a nice little resurgence right now. Like he looked disgusting.
He's catching with his hands now. Did you see that catch with his hands yesterday?
Look at him grow up. He's such a big boy.
Big boy. Joe, any comments on the hit rate, draft pick hit rate?
Yeah, I think that's. I think Mike's exactly right. I think the issue is when you get into the second and third round where the hit rates like really kind of tumble and you're talking 15-20% hit rates. So that's why, you shouldn't have any, if you're a contender, you shouldn't have any qualms about giving up a second for someone who's going to contribute for you this year. Because you're talking about, maybe a 25% chance if you got a back end second. I go by the rule that there's probably 15 good players in every draft class. And whether you find them or not, that's up to you. But a back end second, you're talking just a very low hit rate on that. It's probably going to be someone, it could be someone like Marshawn Lloyd who just, doesn't play at all, doesn't do anything. It has value, but doesn't do anything for you his rookie year. So you shouldn't really have any qualms at all about moving a second or a third or packaging them together to get a productive player who's going to help you win a championship.
I like it. Let's talk about Tyler's question right here. He's considering trading his first and a mid-second to a contender, or on a contender for Ken Walker. But he'd be trying to swing for a second for Swift.
I really like Kenneth Walker, and I think that's probably a fair asking point, but I'm always going to kind of side with just a little bit cheaper option and just hedge my bet and then pocket that first for another deal somewhere else, And definitely I don't know what your trade deadline is in your league, Tyler. You know, if it's me, it's team no trade deadline, so we don't have one ever in any of the leagues that I start to run. But if you're one of those leagues that's got like a week 14, like I really want to hold that that little bullet just right up until I really have to send it away, like I'm forced to, just in case, because you've seen this year the injuries are becoming brutal, right? Like Dak Prescott just goes down for a couple weeks. I'm sitting here with teams with Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence this week going like, all right, now what the hell do I do at quarterback? Like,
yeah,
can I go get Mac Jones? Like, will somebody let me have Mac Jones? Like, Joe Flacco still available? So I kind of want to have that bullet, you know, if I need it.
Swing the second for a SWIP before I even went after Ken Walker trying to throw the first, right?
Yeah, like that'd be the first thing that I tried to see if they're actually going to bite on that one and just get the cheap one.
Joel, you good with that?
Yeah, I think Mike's exactly right. That's a fair price for Ken Walker, but is that a deal you want to make right now? Do you want to go through that risk of, you know, him getting banged up in the next couple of weeks and then your SOL when the playoffs start? So I'd rather go out. Can I get a Kamara? Can I get a Swift? Can I get somebody like that for cheaper? That's a less valued dynasty asset.
Right. All right, let's move over to some upside young talent, young players with late season upside that we want to talk about here. Any late season breakouts that you see coming? Kind of the same concept: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I'll start with you, Joel. Who's your quarterback?
I'm going with Bo Nix. And he's been pretty good. I think he's got some dynasty value now, but he's got a really good schedule going down the stretch. You get Cincinnati in week 17. So if that's your championship week, that's a really attractive option. And he's got a late bye. He's got a week 14 bye, which, sounds not great. But if you're a team that, I'm very certain I'm going to make the playoffs, I don't need to worry about getting in. I don't need to be playing for week 14. I'm certain I'm going to get in the playoffs. He's going to have that late bye. He's going to have a chance to rest, kind of consolidate, work with Sean Payton, and just kind of come out of the bye firing. So I think he's someone who could have a really good playoff stretch.
I like it. Mike, quarterback?
This is the dart throw of all dart throws.
But we're talking draft picks, huh? We're talking draft picks.
Yeah. We're real draft picks. This was a tough one for me because the quarterback situation has been so up and down all year. I mean, it started terribly throughout. The rookies have been a nice surprise. Drake May, Bo Nix. I love the Bo Nix pick, Joel. Like Bo Nix, I'm glad I got 1 billion shares of him in my dynasty leagues. Like that has paid off infinitely. But I'm really shooting low here. Like massive upside. Get him tossed in on a deal and just pray. And it's because Geno Smith has had moments this year where he has looked god awful and terrible. Sam Howell last year with Ron Rivera's Commanders. The terrible Commanders, no offensive line, no real weapons to speak of. He had moments of like elite quarterback play and elite fantasy production. I'm just picturing, and maybe this is my Sam Howell trutherism that I can never let this go. If they decide to bench Geno or give Sam Howell a shot at this, in this Ryan Grubb offense with DK Metcalf and JSN now on his breakout and, old steady Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant who's been playing well and a much better offensive line than he enjoyed last year, Sam Howell could really put up some numbers where we're like, oh man, like he really did have talent. There was a reason we talked about him as potentially being a first round pick when he came out. So I'm excited to see if he gets an opportunity, and I'll probably be disappointed when he doesn't and they just stick with Geno Smith for the rest of the year and just ride it out. But listen, if we're shooting for maximum upside, like that's the kind of quarterback that I want to go in there because I think he'd thrive if he got the opportunity.
Well, even if you're a contender, you can go grab him right now, right? If you have, call it a super flex. If you have Geno sitting there and he's your QB2 or even your QB3, it's not going to hurt to go get Sam Howell right now, especially if you're sitting there with a JSN or a Lockett or a DK, as one of your wide receivers. Go ahead and get your QB2's backup, which is whether he's this year or whether next year. It's very likely that Sam Howell is going to be, at some point, the starting quarterback for Seattle.
Yeah, we're on the third year of a row too, where I think we're well over the pace of having 60 different quarterbacks start a game in the NFL during the regular season. Started 2 years ago, and we're like, wow, that was probably an aberration. And then last year it was like, shit, it did it. They did it again. And now this year, I honestly thought, I was like, we're gonna regress back to the mean where most of these starting quarterbacks are gonna keep their jobs, they're gonna play forever. Then, Bryce Young gets benched. And you're like, what the hell? And then Anthony Richardson gets benched, and now Dak's hurt. Jordan Love missed some time. Malik Willis is out there playing. You got Trevor Lawrence now. The reports I read, like, this could possibly just be season ending. Like, they could just hang him up for the rest of the year. And I'm going, holy shit, this is really this is becoming a trend. So why not Sam Howell? Why not at this point?
Why not? Joel, RB.
I'm going with a guy who I think has already broken out, but I'm okay like buying high on. It's Tyrone Tracy, who I think has kind of displaced Devin Singletary as the Giants lead back. And this is kind of going back to last year with Puka Nacua, who I kind of said, who kind of a similar situation, right? Super late draft pick, didn't really have any expectations for him, and then he kind of breaks out. If you see him do it, like, he owns it. So don't be afraid to kind of go out there and pay for it. So am I giving up a first for Tyrone Tracy? No, but if it's, if the manager's in a spot where, they don't necessarily believe he's a long-term back, or if he's just a flash in a pan, or he's not going to last because he's not a big guy, I'm okay going out and get him, because I think he's the lead. Like, you look at his efficiency metrics, he's been really good. Playing snap wise, it looks like he has totally displaced Devin Singletary as their lead back. So I think he's a running back that you can target and just throw into your RB2 spot and just be good for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you brought up, would you give a first? And you said no. In one of my leagues just a week ago, somebody sent a first and it went through for Tyrone Tracy.
Yep.
So I
promise it wasn't me.
Yeah, of course, we're only in, at that point, week 9, so we don't, you can kind of guess where that's going to be. It's probably going to be a mid-round, at least a mid to late mid first-round pick, at least as it looks this time right now, but it's still, that was a steep price to play for a running back.
That's aggressive, but like I said, it's a guy I'm okay buying high on, so I'd want to get a little something else in there to kind of mitigate my risk a little bit, but props to them, right? Go get your guy.
Go get your guy. Go get your guy. Mike, who's your running back?
Marshawn Lloyd. Unfortunately, I'm still going to keep tooting this horn. Like, I think Marshawn Lloyd is a better running back than Josh Jacobs. No offense, Joel. I think he's a better running back. The problem is I just can't see him on the field. Like, we just haven't seen him. He is far more explosive, at least from my whatever it counts for college scouting ability. On the field, he looks incredible when he has the ball. Now, he does have a slight fumbling problem, so hopefully he figured out while he's sitting on IR how to, like, really tiki barber that thing and put it high and tight or whatever. He's had plenty of time to work on it, at least while he's sitting on his couch. But I think Marshawn Lloyd, in this offense, if he gets the opportunity when he's fully healthy, it'll be fairly quickly to show that, like, this is the guy that LaFleur wants to get involved because of his explosiveness. Like, this is the Aaron Jones replacement. Now, they've been getting by with a lot of Josh Jacobs, but the thing that's always puzzled me is you got dudes like Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks out there taking meaningful snaps from Josh Jacobs, and those guys are absolutely awful. They're terrible. So when Marshawn Lloyd comes back, this is kind of a guy that, even if it's a 40% like share that he can carve out at the maximum, I think that's something that you're going to be pretty interested in, especially when he starts giving those big splash plays and you're like, wow, did you see him rip off that 40-yard run or that 50-yard run and juke this dude out of the house? Like, that's the kind of guy that I want to be in on. It's just, it's tough. I'm really going out on a limb for a guy that we haven't seen anything of because he's been, chilling on IR for, feels like, the whole season.
Yeah, very, very similar to Marshawn Lloyd. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Jonathan Brooks as well. Kind of have those two guys real close together coming out this year. All right, Joel, wide receiver.
I went with the aforementioned Xavier Legette, and that's just because, like, of the opportunity, right? He's the number one receiver now. Even if Adam Thielen comes back, It seems like he's kind of taking over the number one with Deontay Johnson traded. I think they just want to build around that core. Obviously, Thielen didn't get traded like we thought he might, but I think he's probably going to be an afterthought in that offense even when he comes back. It seems like he's got a little bit going on, kind of building a little bit of a rapport with Bryce Young. So we'll see, but he's in the kind of situation where the kind of late season wide receiver breakout happens, and that he's a guy who's going to come along slowly and then gets the opportunity for playing time after a trade or an injury or something like that, and then just kind of takes off from there.
Yeah, I was not in on the Leggett train. Now that they've sent Deontay away. I like Xavier, even if he is the 2 behind Adam Thielen going forward for the rest of this year. I think they're trying to give him the opportunity to prove that he can be the 1 in that offense.
He needs to show he can be more than Jonathan Mingo.
Well, if not, they're going to be able to trade him for if he can be just a hair better, they can trade him to Dallas for a first.
Exactly.
On a plus note for him, through 8 games of his career, he's already like 7 times whatever Jonathan Mingo's done.
Well, he definitely has the dollar bill ride. He's got that down.
I've seen him in the end zone. I don't know if I've ever seen Jonathan Mingo in the end zone, other than pregame warmups.
Right. And that was just walking.
That was just walking out of the tunnel.
That's right. Oops. I'm not supposed to go in that. That's payment. I'm not.
What is
not in there.
What? Oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
Mike, who's your wide receiver?
I'm going to stick with another favorite of mine in the offseason as far as a rookie. And I did a video on him and I look like an ass because other than week 1, he hasn't done anything like in reality.
It was not because of the video. That's not why.
Well, that too. That too. But Xavier Worthy. And I'm putting Xavier Worthy on this because I have this hope, this massive hope that Andy Reid is smart enough to figure out how to change this offense enough to get him involved in what he does best. Get him down the field. I mean, right now, if you look at it, Xavier Worthy is sitting here and he's 51st in air yards. For a guy who just set the combine record in running the 40. 51st in air yards. He's 31st in air yard share. His ADOT is 11.4, 45th in the league for wide receivers, and he only has 9 deep targets on the entire year. He's getting 1 deep target a game. That's it. That is all they could draw up this offense for is 1 deep target to Xavier Worthy a game. I gotta hope, and I'm really projected here that changes towards the end of the year. And they really go, you know what? Maybe we should run him on a few more go routes. Maybe we should run him on a few more post routes because we have old, slow Travis Kelce, who's an intermediate god. You have old, slow DeAndre Hopkins, who's an intermediate god. You have old, not so old, but he's got like 97-year-old knees, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who's an intermediate god. Like, maybe we should use this guy that we spent this first-round draft pick on the deep ball, and let Patrick Mahomes create and chuck that thing down there a little bit. So, if I'm going to bank on a late-season breakout, it's under Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes figuring out that, hey, man, this guy's fast. We should throw him the ball down the field a few times a game and just see what happens. And hopefully they connect on a few.
Yeah, I'm coming around on Xavier Worthy. I want to say that the talent's there. I want to think that the talent's there. It's just so hard when he's not on the field. He's very, very. They got to scheme up plays for him for some ungodly reason. It doesn't seem like they have set plays for him every single game. They've got to scheme him up, right? They've got to run into rounds or sweeps or whatnot just to try to use his speed. But his speed is better straight line. It's not running in a circle. I know. I know they like to run that, ring around the rosy play, but come on, get him the ball down the field.
I never understood those jet sweeps, those reverses, those end arounds too, where you're putting them Xavier Worthy, little tiny Xavier Worthy, matched up, like now he's got to juke out a 300-pound defensive end. Like that is asking for stop doing that. Stop doing that shit. Like I really hope that wasn't their plan too with Hollywood Brown if he was healthy this year. Like little Hollywood Brown to do that kind of shit either. So
right.
I want to assume they're smarter than that, but then like you mentioned, they go and they run a reverse, and I watch him get crushed by a defensive end, and I go, what? Why? Why? Just Just why?
I do want to give you boys some props over here in the chat here. Dynasty Barry joining us. Appreciate you. South Harmon is in the house. Jay Jackson, who was on a minute ago, he says it's most definitely because of the video. If you don't know, South Harmon's off season.
I'm bad with this. Like I'm worse than the Madden curse. All right,
That's
definitely.
Right. All right, Joel, your tight end upside talent.
I'm going with Theo Johnson of the Giants. I think you need to understand his background and that he was a Canadian kid. So he wasn't recruited at all. I had to go to a tryout to get on the Penn State team. And obviously went to Penn State where he played for James Franklin, who doesn't develop football players. He develops athletes. So I had to kind of learn on the fly how to be a football player, how to be a tight end. I think you're starting to see him get some kind of run in that offense. Daniel Jones can't throw the ball more than 15 yards on field, which kind of plays into his abilities. So I think he's going to get more involved as the season goes on. And, I think people are catching on to the fact that I'm gapping on what's his name. This is just a PPR scam. Why can't I think of his name?
I know who you're talking about. But he's not been relevant, so.
No, exactly. So, yeah, I think he's going to get a bigger share of that offense, though. I'm kind of in on Theo Johnson as kind of a completely buy low.
Bellinger. Daniel Bellinger is who you're thinking of, right?
No, I was thinking of Wan'Dale Robinson.
Oh, well, he's not a tight end, so that's why it was confusing.
Yeah, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I like Theo Johnson. What he's done over the last couple of games. Of course, I mean, some guy named Daniel Jones is now the new quarterback there, and he's actually been decent. Got in the ball against Pittsburgh and Washington, so got him in the end zone, which is nice. We'll have to see what comes of that next year with whatever quarterback, whether that's Sam Howell, whether that's Drew Lock, or they go and get something in the draft. But yeah, having a quarterback does help somewhat of a tight end too, by the way. Mike, who's your tight end?
I'm still dying here. Jay Jackson out here saying that Joel's got T-Mobile Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We do have Spectrum, but it crashed yesterday and it hasn't, like, my wife works from home, so she's been like super furious. It hasn't come back up completely. So yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle.
I'm sorry, Joel, but Jay has the best jokes, period. I'm going to go with a tight end that I thought everybody overvalued, and I still say his name wrong just on purpose, I guess. I guess it's supposed to be Senate, but I refuse because I'm a white Midwesterner. So that's Sanat if I've ever seen it. That's Sanat if I've ever seen it. Ben Sanat. The problem I always had with Ben Sanat was rookie tight ends. We got too over our skis, the Sam Laportas, all these guys out there. We wanted to say, hey, they're going to go out there and produce immediately. Shit doesn't usually happen like that. Sometimes it takes a while. So Ben Sanat has finally fallen in dynasty value into a range of the who gives a shit tight ends, which is perfect because if you want to acquire somebody with some upside, that's the dude that I want to go get now while people are kind of starting to be like, oh, this wasn't what I thought I was sold. This is the wrong bill of goods here. And all he's got in front of him, I appreciate Zach Ertz forever for being an Eagle. I appreciate the fact that Zach Ertz just goes out and produces even at his advanced age, but he's still old as shit. He's still slow as shit, and he's likely to get hurt at some point. If Jaden Daniels is now throwing to only Ben Sanat at the tight end position here late in the season, that's a dude who's going to massively, massively rise and pay off for you from where you're going to acquire him at now.
Yeah, I think the other issue there, when you look at the breakdown for this year, like Zach Ertz is who Zach Ertz is, right? He's getting some targets, but between Ben Sanat, 3 targets all year, and then of course Jesse Bates. Guess how many he's got?
3.
He's got 5.
Ooh, Jesse Bates.
So, but my point of this is, we always talk about when you make these trades, get that third added in. Just go ahead and grab go get Ben Sanat in it, especially if you have a taxi squad where you're able to have a second-year player on that taxi squad. Throw him on your taxi squad, right? Stash him down there, and when he pops off, you can either plug him in your lineup or you are going to be able to sell him at better value.
Did we not already see this just last year with Zach Ertz and Trey McBride.
Oh,
and then as soon as Zach Ertz left, it was like, oh shit, Trey McBride's actually good. Like, oh, is Trey McBride Dynasty tight end once? I'm not saying it's a repeat, but there's going to be a massive value bump when Zach Ertz is out of the way.
I mean, when you look at it, Trey McBride is the 12th overall tight end one right now. So yeah, there is that possibility.
There is.
Golly, why? This is why I went and grabbed you, because I knew how smart you were. Now I'm finding out you're even smarter than I thought you were.
That is impossible.
One take. That one take has done it.
That is impossible.
What, to think you're smarter? Or that too?
To think I'm smarter than I look. Because I look like an idiot.
Joe, I want to ask you about Bo Nix, Tyrone Tracy, Xavier Legette, and Theo Johnson here. I guess real quickly, let's run through, take each player. What is the reasonable trade value for each one of these upside players?
Nix in a super flex, you're not getting for less than you probably need a first plus to get him. Tracy, like you said, is, maybe late first, probably early second of worth of value. Legette, I think you can get for less than his draft capital, which was early to mid second. So I think you can get him for that or I don't think people are really in on him just because the offense is so bad. And Theo Johnson, I don't think anybody's really hanging on to him. The problem is, he hasn't done anything. So if you're trying to buy him from a non-contender, they'd probably rather just hold on to him and see what they have. So you might have to overpay for him if you really want him in that situation.
All right, Mike, same question to you. Sam Howell, Marshawn Lloyd, Xavier Worthy, Ben Sinnott.
Sam Howell maybe costs a fourth. Like, really? You might have to toss some fab, I guess, maybe. That is more the kind of guy you just get thrown in on a bigger deal. You just get added on. I don't think a lot of people are specifically going out and sending a pick for Sam Howell, but Marshawn Lloyd probably around a third range. It definitely ain't a second anymore because we haven't seen anything from him. I think a third would probably get it done in most cases. Xavier Worthy is going to be the tougher one. A lot of people are still going to hold, the sunk cost fallacy. So I think if you really wanted to get him, it's going to start at first for a lot of people. And maybe you got to find those people who are like, I'll just re-roll to next year's class. Like, give me your mid to late first, and I'll re-roll to next year and try to do better. Ben Sinnott, maybe for the richest of people, it still costs a late second, but it has been pretty putrid. Like you said, 3 targets on the year. Like that's your selling point. I don't like to put a lot of shit in the chat when I'm trying to actively acquire a player, right? Like, I hate that when people give me stories, like, and try to tell me why this is so good for me. But if you were to offer a pretty good third round pick in 2025 for him, and somebody's like, "Nah, I'm good," you'd be like, "All right, well, good luck with your 3 targets on the year," whatever, and just walk out of the chat room. Like, who cares? Like, I don't give a shit. But a third is probably about correct for him.
All right, I want to move on to the last one, get us out of here, but I do want to get to this one here because I think it's pretty important when it comes to Dynasty. Let's talk about some of the players we want to look at and the reason we're looking at them is because of the playoff matchups, week 15 to 17. So again, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end here. I'll start with you, Mike. Who's your quarterback, and why are we? What are we looking at as far as the playoff matchup?
I will cheat here because I went quarterback, wide receiver, tight end off the same exact team because the matchup is so goddamn good. It's just so goddamn good.
I didn't even notice that you did that. I looked down, I'm like, damn, he did do that.
I did. I the only one difference is running back, so I'll still step on that, but. Quarterback's going to be Kyler Murray. The wide receiver is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. And the tight end is going to be Trey McBride. If you look at it, they get a divisional game with the Seahawks. Like, that's going to be highly competitive. I would imagine both teams are still in the running to make the playoffs, if not win the division, depending on what the 49ers do. Then they get the Patriots. Then they get the Panthers. And then they get another divisional game with the Rams, another highly competitive one that they're going to really go balls deep to try to win. So you just wedge that in there, though, the Patriots and the Panthers to start your fantasy football playoffs, weeks 15 and 16. Holy Santa Claus shit. This is the offense I want. Sorry, Panthers and Patriots fans, but your defenses are ass. ass, pure ass. So give me every bit of the Arizona offense during those 2 weeks. Listen, it doesn't matter what the championship game matchup is if you don't win week 15. If you're bounced in the first week, who gives a shit?
That's right. That is true. I want to ask you about Marvin Harrison. All the hype coming in, 1-1 in most leagues, 1-2 if he wasn't 1-1. Little underwhelming, if not very underwhelming to start off. Worried at all? I'm assuming the answer is no.
None. If Marvin Harrison wasn't competing with the fact that Malik Neighbors started off so hot and people went, oh shit, right? If he wasn't competing with the fact that, Puka Nacua came out of nowhere last year and absolutely surprised us, people would look at it and go, man, this was a pretty good year from a rookie wide receiver. He has had pretty big games and pretty big moments. The consistency hasn't been there, but we're also only 9 weeks into the season. Like, it does take some time for the quarterback and wide receiver to gel. So Marvin Harrison is one of those guys that there's more things on the field. They're doing more stuff to get him more actively involved earlier in the game and keep him more involved in clutch time moments. The Arizona Cardinals are. So I'm not worried at all for Marvin Harrison. And if anybody's panic selling on him, I will gladly just snatch up all the Marvin Harrison. Like, he is a good wide receiver. We just get too much in this, like, we need it now. And, oh my God, look at Malik Neighbors getting 15 targets. Yeah, they're from shitty-ass Daniel Jones. They're shit targets, all right? They are what they are. Malik Neighbors is dope as shit, man. I'm not to disregard that guy at all, but people are panicking on Marv for no real apparent reason other than, you remember what, Jamar Chase did in his rookie year? Not every wide receiver is going to do that as a rookie, people.
Well, a lot of that was because there wasn't white stripes on the ball, from what I heard.
Yeah, and last I heard too with him, those of you in South Harmon know, he didn't wash his ass. That's what his baby mama said. Guy doesn't wash his ass, so he probably had some crusties and stuff in there that affected its catching ability.
Oh yeah, that's more than likely what it was. Joel, talk about your 4 guys here: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. With the playoff matchups that you were trying to snag.
Yeah, speaking of shitty ass Daniel Jones, I put him in here just because now there's risk here, right? Because he does have the injury clause in his contract. They're not going to be competitive at the end of the year. So there's a chance he gets benched for that, a la Russ Wilson and Derek Carr a couple years ago. But if you look at their schedule, the playoff schedule, you got the Ravens, who have a terrible pass defense. They've got Atlanta in the dome. So you got, you don't have to worry about weather. Obviously a good offense that's going to force them to try and keep up. And then you get the Colts week 17. So who have a terrible secondary. So very favorable matchups down the stretch. Yeah, Breece Hall of the Jets. They get Buffalo week 17. Buffalo's been really bad against the run. And they get Jacksonville in week 15 as well, too. So very favorable schedule for the Jets. Terry McLaurin, Washington's got week 17 against Atlanta. That's a game that's probably going to go up and down the field, right? You got Atlanta, Jaden Daniels on both sides. So like that. And then as much as I hate Dalton Schultz, Houston's got a pretty favorable schedule. I think they get the Ravens in there too. So, and Steph isn't coming back. So he's going to have to be part of the offense at some point.
Yeah, I like all 8 of these calls here. Daniel Jones, Breece Hall, Terry McLaurin, Dalton Schultz, Kyler Murray, Saquon Barkley, who's absolute stud this year. Why couldn't they use DeAndre Swift the same way they use Saquon? Whatever, that's fine. Marv Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, the new or I guess the old Zach Ertz. Yeah. Well, the new, or what Ben Sinnott can be, the Ben Sinnott wannabe. There we go. That's how we should do it. All right, guys, let's get the hell out of here. Let's go watch this football game that's on currently. Before we do that, Joel, tell the good people where they can find you and what you got going on.
At the Joel Worth on Twitter. You can find me here Thursdays with Gator and guests on the after party, and Tuesdays with Hoove and Dusty doing the trade block show.
All right. The reason I had you go first is I knew this guy was going to be forever talking about all the stuff he's got going on. So, Mike, tell him what you got going.
Well, psych. I'll go check it out at southharvardff.com. You can find all the shit there. And if you want to know what days I'm on, it's probably every fucking day of the week. All right, at this point. Boom. Like that condensed version? Take that.
That's it. Well, this one won't be so condensed. We have shows every day of the week, it seems like. We'll start it off on Mondays. Monday morning, 11 a.m., Monday's Anxiety. That is me, Josh, and Ryan. We do the recap from what we just saw on Sunday and preview somewhat the Monday game, if we even care anymore. Tuesday morning, Wiretap with Ryan and Josh. That is the Waiver Wire Show. Tuesday evening is Trade Block, as Joel just brought up with himself, Dusty and Hoove. That is the Dynasty Trade Show. Wednesdays, we have 2 shows now. No Pun Intended with Josh, Ryan, and Joe. That's the weekly preview show. And then Wednesday, directly after that, Cleat Dreams with Renee and Kelly. That is the Women of Fantasy Football podcast. Thursday morning, Oh Captain, My Captain at 9 a.m. with Josh and Austin, the DFS showdown for Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. The Sneaky Flex Girls. And by the way, if you did not see that episode tonight, go back and watch that. They had Rashad Jennings on. It was absolute gold. Wednesday night, you have us directly after that at 8 p.m. Dynasty After Party with myself and Joel. And then tomorrow morning, DFS Academy with Ryan and Austin. That is your DFS cash game and GPP preview for the weekly slate. And then Saturday morning, one of the hottest shows on Club Fantasy. Start sit, different day. Josh and Joe get together, usually with a guest. Mike was on just a couple weeks ago doing start sit questions, and it was absolutely a freaking blast. So
I can update you on that. Josh lost a bet on that show. He owes me a Kelly Green, Jalen Hurts, 3X size. Josh, by the way, in case you forgot. He did update me. He DM'd me on Twitter, said he's got it ordered. He'll give me the tracking number whenever he gets it. So he's a man of his word. He paid his bet. You shouldn't have bet against Jalen Hurts anyways.
That is awesome. That is kind of a weird bet too. Two Philly fans betting and one of them not taking Jalen Hurts.
You know who the true fan is, all right?
I didn't say that. I did not say that. All right. For Mike, for Joel, I'm Gator. We are out of here. We will see y'all next week. Appreciate it. Why didn't it go? Dang it.